Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Tea with Honey. I'm your host, Raven Honey, and today I have a very special guest, one of my bestest friends in the world, Jarrod. What's up, Jarrod?
Hey, honeybees. Jarrod here.
Hi, how are
Totally
you?
ripping off Chelsea Lynn, but, I had to say that because honey. Hey, honeys.
I don't even know who Chelsea Lynn is, to be honest with you.
Trailer Trash Tammy.
Oh, from Vine. Right.
Yes.
Well, how are you? How was your day?
I'm doing well, actually, and my day was actually really good.
Oh, yeah. What did you work?
I did. I went to work today. Work was actually really good. Everybody was in a good mood. Yeah, it was funny. So I was telling my coworkers I was going to be on your podcast later.
Yeah.
And there was one thing that one of my coworkers said. She's like, "Oh my God, you should totally say this on your friend's podcast." Now that we're talking about it, I'm just going to say it. So basically, so for those of you that don't know, I work in a cannabis dispensary and I'm their communication and marketing coordinator. So what I do is I basically respond back to everybody online. So anytime like a customer has a question for the business, I'm the person that responds back. So
cool. I didn't even know that you did that.
Yeah, that's actually what I do. Yep.
I had no idea what you did at your job, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm just rolling joints all day. No, I'm not actually.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
So this guy reached out and like his name's Joe, and my coworker said, she's like, "Oh my God, you should get on the podcast and say fuck you, Joe." Because seriously, fuck you, Joe. This guy reached out.
Oh my God.
Made a whole scene, made up an entire story. He made everything up. I mean, some of it was like true, but there was parts that weren't, because we went back through the security footage and we watched the whole encounter happen, and we're like, oh my God. And then he emails us and then blasts us on social media. So we just like blocked it.
Okay. He faked something. What happened here? We're already getting into the tea. We're not even talking about work tea today. That was not even the plan, but I guess we're getting into it. I want to know what happened.
Oh my God. Long story short, he was asking about organic cannabis, and the bud tender went back to ask a question like to somebody else, and he was really upset about that, and he was like, unprofessional.
Oh, okay. So he asked somebody. What happened? I don't understand the story.
He was just really mad because he thought that we were more. He was just really mad. Like, he was mad.
Okay, so a guy at your work is mad, and so you wanted to say fuck him on my podcast.
Yeah, I wanted to say fuck you on the podcast, because that happened today.
Okay, well, cool.
He was irrationally mad. That's what was funny about it.
Shout out to you, Joe. You got your 10 seconds of fame on my podcast that nobody listens to, so...
Hey.
There you go. Okay.
No, but besides that, work was so good.
Good. Yeah, I work today too. I'm at Dog Training Academy because I'm a dog trainer, but I'm with a different company, so I have to get certified through them, right? So They sent me to Dog Training Academy at a different store, and so I feel like I'm in like dog college. Like I feel like I went to get my master's in dogs, because it's just
that's pretty cool though.
Okay, so I think we should get into how we know each other. So we've known each other for a while, like 8 years, maybe 7. I don't even know at this point.
9 or 10 years, maybe.
Wow, we're almost reaching. I think it might be like almost 10. So we're like almost double-digit friends.
Oh my God,
that's crazy.
I love that.
I know, 10 years, dang. I mean, I feel like I have known you that long and longer, but also like that's such a long time. Like,
I agree.
Because when we met, I think I was 16, because I invited you to my 17th birthday.
That's true.
And that was a year after we met. So it's probably been about 8, almost 9 years now.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And we met at, I almost said Benihana. I almost said Benihana, Kobe, Japan. I was like,
Kobe, Japan.
The restaurant where they cook in front of you. Like,
they flip the shrimp in your mouth.
Right. Okay. And I remember this vividly. So as you know, but for our audience, me and Jarrod, my grandma and his mom have a mutual friend who is from America, but she moved to London like 30 years ago. She married a British guy, John, rest in peace. And great guy, John. Except John, listen, love him, great guy, miss him, rest in peace. Could not understand a word he ever said.
I knew you were gonna say that. I know.
He had the most cockneyest British accent, because they would come down once a year.
He had 2 accents, because he had like this like super cockney British accent, And then he had like almost like was it like an Irish accent on top of it?
It was also Irish.
Because I remember there was just times where he would talk and he would say something and I'm like, I have no idea what you just said.
Well,
I think he
was from Ireland and then moved to London. Yeah. So it was a horrible mix.
yeah. But there was times where like he would say something to me and I'd say, what? And then he'd say it again. And I'm like, huh? And he's like, I'm speaking English. And I'm like,
I know. I dread, like, again, great guy, but like I dreaded being around him alone because I needed one of his kids to like translate what he was saying for me.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, for our audience who's confused, my grandma and Jarrod's mom, mutual friend, moved to London, married John, who we're just talking about, and John had an older daughter, our friend Kat, who's about our age, and then with this woman. Judy is her name. Hi, Judy. Shout out.
We love Judy.
And then with Judy, they had triplets, 2 girls and a boy. And I've known them since they were born because even before they were born, Judy would come down, visit her family in America, and we'd see her every year. And I went to the triplets' first birthday party. And actually, Jarrod did too. Because it was in America.
We were both at that party.
We were both at that party because they came to California for it, where we all were. But we didn't meet until like years after that.
Yeah, because I don't remember you at all at that party, but we both talked about being there, and it's like, wait, we were both there.
I don't remember anything about that party. I think they had a jump house, and that's like all I remember.
I remember the jump house. I remember hanging out with Kat a little bit, and then I remember specifically Nathan, because they were turning 1. Nathan was sitting in like his high chair and he was throwing his sippy cup on the ground constantly, and I kept picking it up and putting it back on his thing, and he'd pick it up and throw it back on the ground, and for some reason he got so much amusement out of it.
Nathan was the boy of the triplets, for those listening.
Oh yes, Nathan's the boy.
But anyway, we did actually, and we were both separately friends with Kat because Kat would come down when they visited, and eventually later when we all became friends, we all hung out together, and that was cool. But when we met years after that, the triplets were like 5 or 6, I don't even know. They came down and my grandma was like, hey, Raven, the triplets are here. And obviously I saw them every year. She's like, oh, we're all going to go to dinner. And Judy invited her friend Rhonda, which is your mom.
Mm-hmm. Yep, my mom.
And my grandma was like, oh, and Rhonda has a son who's about your age, so you can come and you could like hang out with him or whatever. Because I think she knew that like if I wouldn't want to go out because then the triplets would just bother me the whole time.
Yeah, they were very bratty.
They were a lot. I mean, triplets always competing with each other. They all had these very distinct personalities that were very combative with each other. I love them, and they're older now and maybe not like this anymore, but I don't know.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, a little bit, but no.
Well, they're older now. Like, they're mature. This is when they were children, so, like, no judgment on them. But, oh, my God. They would not leave you alone. And they were always crying and yelling at each other, screaming but it was cute with their little accents.
Yeah, they were literally screaming in British.
I loved it. Like, we would all hang out together, and then, you know, when I was there, or when you were there, too, I assume this happened to you, they just attached to us.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're around their parents all the time. So, and we're like cool older kids.
We're the only kids there. Yeah, we're the only kids there.
And so they would just like compete for our attention. I remember going to a museum with them one time when they were around that age in San Francisco, and they came to visit. And I was like taking turns giving them like piggyback rides. And they were like trying to like time it so everyone got a fair time. Christina especially was all about fairness. Christina was very like,
it isn't fair.
It isn't fair. That's what Christina would always say. It's not fair.
Mommy, it's not fair.
Nathan, it's my go. It's my turn. Like,
how come she gets a longer go, but I don't?
And then it's like, okay, nobody gets it anymore. Nobody gets it.
No, you know what?
If you're gonna yell about it, you've lost your privilege.
Yep.
But it was funny, and like when we met. So the restaurant story, I was like, yeah, boy my age, sure. So we went, and I remember like sitting there because we got there first, and I'm like sitting with the triplets, and then you and your mom walk in, and I was just like not expecting anything. I was just like, another kid, you know, everyone tries to like set up their kids to be friends.
Right.
But you walk in, and I was like, he's so cute. I was like, oh my God, I'm glad I came. It's like, who's this little blonde boy?
Oh man.
And then like
boy walking in.
I know, I was like, what? Like, okay. Well, one, it was great having you there because then the triplets weren't all their attention on me.
Right.
It was kind of weird with us because, like, we didn't talk, like, the whole time until, like, the end. Like, I don't remember, like, we didn't talk at all until, like, we were about to leave.
I feel like, so how I remember is, I remember my mom, she was like, oh, like, there's going to be, like, another girl there. Her name's Raven. She's close to your age. And I remember specifically thinking, like, oh, wow, like, Raven's a cool name. Like, I bet she's, like, cool. And then we went there. And then I remember, like, it was you and I remember, like, the first half of, like, the night was, like, the two of us, like, watching the triplets. Like, that was our task.
Yeah, we sat next to each other.
Like, yeah, but then once, like, they kind of calmed down a little bit, and then we got to, like, talk and stuff. And I remember just thinking, like, oh, my God, like, she's really cool. Like, we're hitting it off.
No. What was cool about me when I was 16, I was a freaking loser.
Dude. I remember, I know you're probably going to bring this up too. Specifically, I remember asking you, like, oh, like, what do you like? And you said, oh, I really like movies and stuff. And I said, like, oh, I really like movies too and stuff. And then you were asking me, like, what movies I liked. And I remember, like, at the time, I had just watched it, maybe, like, the third time. I was like, well, I really like this one movie called Repo, the genetic opera.
Oh,
and then
man.
Your face lit up. And I was like, oh my God, she knows this movie too?
Oh my God, that's how I feel every time someone's like, yeah, I've seen it. I'm like, no, you haven't. Really?
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, you've not seen this movie.
No way.
You're saying that.
And then another movie we actually bonded over. I mean, that one especially because that movie's like one of the greatest movies ever. But also the film May.
Yeah.
Which
I couldn't believe that, like, you saw that movie too.
That's another, like, obscure one. And that was
one of those,
like
horror movies that no one knows.
Right. And because at the time I used to like, I would stay up late on the weekends and like go through like what was playing on Comcast or whatever. And just like, I would go through it as far as it would let me, like a week or two in advance. And I would record every horror movie that played at any hour. And then the next weekend I would watch them all after they'd recorded over the course of the week. Yeah,
and that's how I think. I watched so many horrible movies on the Sci-Fi Channel,
and that's how I saw May. And I had like just seen it by the time we met, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like no way!"
I think I saw that one on Comcast too or something. Because I remember I saw a trailer for it on like iTunes or whatever. Because I was looking at like movies on iTunes. I remember because I was going on like a flight and I was gonna download a movie, and I remember saw that, and I'm like, "Wow, that looks kind of weird," but like whatever. And then I saw it on Comcast, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's not like." Interesting movie. And then like I watched it and I remember thinking like, oh, this is a odd movie, this is pretty interesting. And then when you said that you had watched it and stuff, I was like, wait, what? I'm like, you've seen that movie too?
I know, right? It's crazy. So we bonded over that.
Yep.
And we went to the Redwoods with them like a few days later when they were still here.
Yeah, I remember they said, my mom asked me, she was like, oh, did you like Raven? And I was like, yeah, she was really cool. And my mom was like, oh, like, do you want to go to Muir Woods with them? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. You and the triplets.
You're the only one who ever thought I was cool before I got to college. I feel like I became cool when I was like 19. And you're the only
I always thought you were cool.
Well, thank you. I always thought I was a loser in high school. And we're going to talk about like high school and college stories later. But I'm telling you now, I have none from high school because I didn't do anything.
It's okay.
But you'll cover that, and then I'll cover college when things got... I went through my rebellious period after I had moved away from home and didn't need to rebel against anything. So
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But anyway, I'm glad you've always thought I was cool.
Okay, well, because the colored hair, your name's Raven.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have colored hair.
Kind of like goth, and I thought that was
I did.
Cool.
I was going to say, I thought I didn't have colored hair in high school, but I would color it during the summers. I remember that.
Yeah. I remember that. And like,
good times.
And I remember we had so much to talk about that was like considered like creepy and like dark stuff, but almost kind of like, you know, it was like creepy and dark stuff, but we're like bonding over it. And we're just like, I was just like, oh my God, like this is so cool. Like she likes this stuff too.
I know, we were little weirdos together and we're still little weirdos now.
We still are, yeah.
Yay.
We still like jump with glee when we go into Spirit Halloween.
Oh man, I love Spirit Halloween.
Love Spirit.
But anyway, like we bonded so much over that short period of time with the triplets, and we had a fun time like roasting their accents together, and we would laugh and Christina, Nathan. Oh my gosh. It's not fair. I used
How
to.
come she has more time with the iPad?
We would
The
watch.
iPad's gonna run out of charge.
I would watch Dora the Explorer with them, and I've always hated Dora the Explorer. And so I would make fun of it as we were watching it. I'd be like, I don't care, Dora. Every time she like talked to the audience, I'd be like, I don't care. And then the triplets would go, yeah, Dora, I don't mind it. And I was like, okay. Anyway, long story short, we met up with the triplets. We each thought the other person was cool. We bonded, and then we didn't talk for a whole nother year.
Yep.
After the Redwoods, which was our second encounter, we followed each other on Instagram and stuff, but we literally did not talk. And then it was my birthday. I was turning 17. That was in September. So it was pretty much like a calendar year later almost.
Yeah.
And I decided, I mean, I still remembered that you were cool and I wanted to be friends with you. It's just like, it was hard to like reach out because we didn't go to the same school or anything. So it's like, I didn't know how to be friends with you.
And we were friends. We were friends through like another like
friends through our family members, my grandma and your mom.
Yeah.
So it was my birthday, and I was like inviting people because I love parties. I love throwing them. I love hosting them. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm just gonna like go for it and invite Jarrod, even though I haven't talked to him in a year.
Aw, you're still thinking about me.
I was. Well, I still had you on Instagram and stuff, and I was like, wow, he's so cool. And so I invited you, and to my surprise, you accepted.
Yeah.
Which I honestly thought you weren't. I thought you were going to be like, no, I'm busy, because like I thought you were going to think it was weird.
Well, so I remember when I got the message, I remember you were saying like, hey, I know this is super random, we haven't talked in a while, but I'm having a birthday party, and I thought you were really cool and wanted to know if you wanted to like join. And I remember when I saw that, my first thought was like, I haven't seen her in a while, and like I don't know any of her friends. Like, what if this is kind of weird?
Yeah.
But then I remember like thinking about it, and I was like, well, she was really cool, and I haven't talked to her in a while, and this could be something fun. And so I remember you like said what the details were, and it sounded like we're gonna start off at, was it like Boomers?
Yeah, like an arcade Scandia type place.
Yeah, we're gonna like start there, and then we were gonna like bring the party back to like your house afterwards. So I remember thinking like, maybe I'll just do Boomers, and like I'll have fun there, and then I'll have like my mom pick me up afterwards or whatever.
Yeah, but you had so much fun at my birthday party that you did come to my house.
I did. I had so much fun at Boomer. Because I remember like when I first walked in, I was like, hi. But like everybody was so cool and all your friends were so nice. And I remember I was a little shy at first, but then like once like I kind of like learned that like everybody was like really cool and really nice, then like I opened up more and stuff and literally had such a good time with like everybody there.
Yeah, I mean, me and all my friends were like nerds, so we were very accepting of anybody because we were like, more friends? Cool people? Oh my gosh,
I thought y'all were awesome.
Well, I'm glad you thought that. I mean, I thought my friends were cool too, but I was like, in our high school, we were like a tight group that like no one else talked to, so we were like the little weirdos.
Whatever.
But yeah, and it was so fun, and then we've been friends ever since, and we like talked regularly. We hung out regularly after that.
Oh yeah. Well, then it was great because so it was funny because I remember I didn't have your number, and I got your number at your party, and I still have it saved to this day, where I put your contact in as Raven, the coolest person ever who knows how to throw great parties, and that's literally been your contact in my phone ever since. Like that, and then like Snapchat too. I get like a Snapchat from you. It says Raven, the coolest person ever who knows how to throw great parties.
That's me, baby.
That's Raven. It's Ray of the Bay.
I love throwing parties. Guess what you are in my phone? I haven't changed it since I added you either.
This bitch? I don't know.
Nah, it's Jarrod, my love.
Aw, I love that.
It's literally Jarrod, my love, and then your last name in my phone.
That's really sweet. That's sweet. I love that. That's sweet.
So that's how we know each other. We've known each other ever since and have had tons of fun and cool experiences together.
Oh, yeah. Because then it was great. Because then like basically after that, like we both were like, all right, we're going to make the effort to be friends. Because then like we were both driving at this point, and it was like, yeah, like we're going to make the effort to be friends. And like I remember just having driving over to like your house and stuff, and like we would just have so much fun.
We would just laugh. We just laugh together all the time. You know, a more recent history story. A few years ago, I had a big breakup. Mm-hmm. We won't get into it, but when it happened, I texted you, and you came over to my house, And this was like in the middle of COVID, and so I hadn't seen anybody in a while. The person I broke up with, I hadn't seen him in months at that point anyway, and then we broke up, and then I was depressed. And you coming over and seeing me was the first time I had smiled or laughed in like 3 or 4 months at that point. Like it was like the best day of that like part of the year. Like I was like, it was like such a rare at that time. It was like such a rare thing for me to like smile that every time I did, my mom made an effort to point it out. Like if I ever saw something,
I remember that.
She was always like, "Oh my God, you're smiling!" Like she was so shocked.
Yeah, I remember that. She's like, "Look at her smile."
She's like, "Oh my God, you're laughing!" Like it was such a shock to see me laugh. And looking back at it now,
look so good with your smile.
I know. Looking back at it now, I was like, that's kind of fucked up that I smiled so little that my mom made such a big deal about it when I did. But yeah, that was a dark time. So.
And I remember too, because I remember like around that like time and everything, it seemed like you were like really sad and at the time what everything meant. And so I remember the second I got your text message, I was just like, okay, I need to go see her. I'm like, I don't want her to like,
you were
feel
like,
sad and stuff.
I'm on my way. I'm coming.
I was, yeah. I remember you told me that on a Thursday, and I said, tomorrow after work, I'm driving up.
Yeah, and I lived 2 hours away from you at that point, which was the crazy part. Like we weren't close at that. That's when I lived in a different spot because we used to live near each other, and then at that point we didn't. And you drove the 2 hours, which was great.
Yeah, I didn't care.
And that was again like the best day of like that whole summer because it happened in the summertime.
Yeah.
So a long story so far. We're dragging on a bit. So, but that's how we know each other, and we're close friends.
Yes.
We've been through a lot together. We've been through so much.
Absolutely.
You were there during my like I don't want to call it a crazy period, but my like I don't know my rebellious period. Even though I was an adult and there's nothing to rebel against, but when I was in college, like before and like in high school, like I keep like referring to the fact that I didn't think I was cool, and that's because like I never like dated anybody. Like my fashion was like was so bad. I used to wear like space boots.
I thought they looked cool, but all right.
Well, you're the exception because I look back on those photos of myself and I like cringe. And like I was fat, I still am, but it was different. My hair was all over the place. I finally figured out how to like style it. And
I thought you looked great.
Thank you. Well, everybody else, and I thought I was like annoying. I don't know.
Never. Raven's never annoying.
To you.
But continue.
To you. But anyway, I was such a homebody in high school, and I had my close group of friends, and I always like wanted to like date people, like ever since like middle school. Like I didn't have my first kiss until I was like, I want to say 15, maybe 16. I think it was 15. And I was just like, I'm so behind everybody because like I knew people in middle school who would like date and stuff, and I never went to parties. I like threw my own for my friends, but I never like went to any. And so I would hear all these like crazy stories of like the other kids like doing this crazy off the wall stuff, and I was just like home like watching YouTube all the time. When I got to college, that's when I kind of broke out of that, like getting away from home and like trying to find myself, and that's when I like went to parties and did this and that. You were there during that time, and so you got like the live tweets version.
Oh my God, I loved our FaceTime calls because I'm just like, tell me what you just did. Like, tell me what happened.
Yeah. Well, anytime I like did anything interesting, I would text you, and then we would regularly FaceTime and like catch up with all the tea and whatever. And you had some too. But I feel like a lot of your like crazy stuff that you did like happened in high school before I knew you. So
a little bit. Well, and while you knew me.
While I knew you, but like I didn't know about a lot of it at the time. A lot of it was like, oh yeah, like me and my friend Bridget like did this crazy shit, and I was like, whoa. Like, I was like clutching my pearls because I was like such a good girl at the time. I was like, no, you didn't. You tried drugs like that. Is there any stories I don't know if you would call it like a rebellious period or just like you being you, like doing crazy stuff with your friends? Are there any stories that like stick out to you of things you did that like you think about sometimes?
I mean, like there was like, what do I want to share on the internet?
You don't have to use anybody's names.
Right. Okay, I love this story. I remember. Okay, like I told like so many people in Idaho this story. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, I went to school in Boise State, Idaho, and I got my degree there.
Gross.
And I lived like 4.5 years there. If you're from like California, you know, like you're kind of used to like how people are in California. But people in Idaho, like they're a different breed. Not like, you know, like not bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
And I remember telling everybody in Idaho about this story. So basically, I was friends with this one girl in high school. I'm gonna call her Lee. I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this. She's like, "Hey, I'm throwing this Valentine's Day party." This was probably like my senior year of high school. She's like, "I'm throwing this Valentine's Day party." She's like, "My mom's gonna be in Amsterdam for a business trip, so party at my mom's house." And I was like, "All right, cool, like lit. It's gonna be awesome." So we go to her mom's house, and as we're like getting to like the house, we find out it's in this like gated community.
Fancy.
And we have to go through like security, and the security had like literally everybody's names that was like going to this house, and I was just like, this is weird. I'm like,
oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, this is so weird. Like, so they know everybody going over. They know there's a lot of people going over. Like, okay, whatever. So we get there, and Lee's parents were Lee's parents are divorced. So like, you know, it was Lee's mom's place, and then, you know, like her dad had his own place. So we're at Lee's house, and the party's just getting started, right? Like, you know, we're just starting to pour drinks. We're just starting to like turn the music up, right? Everything's just starting, right? And Lee is sitting on this like chair that like was right in front of like the front door. And she has her face in the bong. She's getting everything ready, right? And also we hear the front door open. And I just kind of like look, because I just like hear it. And I look and I see Lee's dad walking in through the front door. And then I'm looking at Lee, whose face is in a bong. And like, you see her look up. She makes eye contact with her dad. You see her eyes go wide. Like, you know, you see that like, oh shit, look in her face. And then she just like rips the bong as hard as she can and then tries to light the next bowl before her dad can react, because she's just like, oh shit, well, let me just get as high. I'm already fucked, so let me get this as high as I possibly can.
Oh my God.
So I don't care when he yells at me. So she just is like, hi, Dad. And I remember I just grabbed my friend and I'm like, we're getting the fuck out of here. Let's go. And we just booked it out of there as fast as we could. And then I see another friend of mine like walking up too. And I'm like, we gotta go right now. My other friend's like, why? What's going on? And I'm like, her dad came home. We gotta go.
Gee, you know what that reminds me of? There was, I think, 2 separate parties I went to in college that got broken up by cops. And I went with my best friend at the time. I'm going to call her Bella. I no longer talk to her. Unfortunately, I miss her. But anyway, we would go to parties together because she was hardcore going through like a rebellious phase. Like she wanted to try weed. She wanted to drink. She wanted to do all that stuff. Right. I wasn't ready yet, but I like went along with her to the parties.
Yeah.
And there were 2 separate times where cops broke it up because the college parties I went to were so crowded. It was like Disneyland in there. I could not go anywhere without brushing up against everybody. They would just like pack these little student apartments full of people.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody but my friend. And so a cop would come, and the first time we ran out the front door to her truck. We like ran, and the other kids who were piling out of the house were like laughing at us for running, but we're like, we're not getting caught. And then the second time we had given like these 2 like football players a ride, and so they had to like escape with us back to her car, and we went through the backyard and jumped a fence and then ran across the street. And I was like, I mean, we're not going to get arrested. They're just going to tell us to leave. And I wasn't in trouble because I was not underage drinking. Thank you very much.
So, you weren't doing anything wrong.
At the time, no. Freshman year, I was still lame. I didn't do any of that stuff. It wasn't until, later. But... And that was actually, you know what? No, I was going to say that was the only time I ever went to parties was freshman year. But I went to this like iconic Halloween party my sophomore year, which... Oh
my God, I love this.
I think that was the first time that I ever got really, really drunk. And I've only been that drunk like 2 or 3 times since then. I went with my friend Grace, who I'm still friends with. I'm not friends with a whole lot of people from college. I'm friends with like 2 or 3 of them.
Right.
And Grace is one of them.
Because it's kind of hard after like you move away, and it's hard to like keep in touch with everybody.
It is. That's what sucks, because everyone's like, oh, you meet your lifetime friends in college, and it's like, most of my lifetime friends are from high school.
Yeah, same here. I feel like most of my lifetime friends were from high school. I mean, granted, I do have a couple lifetime friends from college, but a lot of my friends from college, like, I don't really talk to them a whole lot anymore, and not like for any like reason particular. It's just I don't know.
It just dropped off. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's fine. There's a very specific reason I don't talk to Bella anymore, but we don't have to get into that right now.
No.
So, but anyway, I went to this Halloween party sophomore year, and I think maybe because I got so drunk, I just stopped going to parties and just started, like, when I would drink, it would be like having wine with my roommates and eating pizza, because that was way more fun to me.
Yeah, sometimes that is more fun.
But they had, what was it? Well, first of all, Grace was like lining up shots for me. They were like at the bartender pointing at me like, get her drunk. I want you to get her drunk. And they just were like pouring out these shots. And I was like, okay. And then they put out a bowl of pear sangria.
Ooh.
They had all these pre-made drinks that were like Halloween themed. It was so cool. And one of them was pear sangria, and it was just a bowl. So you just scoop it out and put it in a cup. And I had probably like 10 cups of it because it tasted so good. It didn't taste like alcohol. I don't like the taste of alcohol. So like if I'm going to drink it, I want something that doesn't taste like it. Or I immediately have to drink water after because I'm like super lame. But it tasted so good and so sweet. I literally had like 10 cups, and I don't really remember a whole lot after that, to be honest with you. So I remember leaving the party at like 10 p.m. because I got drunk so fast. I was only at the party for like 2-3 hours.
I remember like after that party, you were telling me about it. You were like, I got drunk, and I was like, oh my God, really? I was like, what'd you think? What was it like? And I remember like specifically, you were like, I kept drinking and I felt nothing. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
it hit me like a bus.
Right when you stood up.
Oh my God. And I have a picture of me from that night where I'm like hugging Grace, and like my eyes are huge and I'm like smiling so wide. I was like, yeah, I'm so drunk in that photo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got home that night and my roommates were recording me because I was literally like, I'm never gonna go to another party again. And I drank all these drinks, and I like didn't feel anything, and then I'm like drunk, like, and I literally, like, my friend had to come pick me up. And my roommates were recording me, and they like played it for me the next day. It was so cringe. And my roommate like tucked me into bed, and then she like left to go sleep in her boyfriend's dorm, and then I got up and I like threw up so much. And then I went back to bed. And it was like, and the next day I was like, that was crazy. And I was like, normally every time I get drunk, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. And then I usually do.
Yeah, that happens every time.
But I haven't been really drunk in a long time. I'll tell you, the last time I was super drunk, which I don't really drink that much anymore. I never drank a lot. Like, I never drank regularly, but like when I did, it was a lot. So it was like maybe every other month or so, I would just go ham.
Yeah.
And now
that's the way to go.
I like don't do that anymore because I'm like getting to be a grown up. So.
You're like, I don't think I should be doing this.
But when Fast and Furious 9 came out,
I love this story.
AKA F9. That was like, I think that was like, it was 2 years ago at this point, I think, or almost 2 years. It was in June. So, I mean, like a year ago.
Yeah.
F9 came out, and my boyfriend Kyle loves the Fast and Furious movies. The first few months when we were dating, he made me watch all of them. Mm-hmm. And so that June, which I think we'd been together like 6 months or so at that point, we weren't living in LA yet. We were both still in the Sacramento area, which is where we met. He was like, he went to college in LA, so we had a lot of friends out there, and they all love Fast and Furious. So he was like, when F9 comes out, I'm going to rent out a theater in LA where we went to college. Not like a whole theater, but like one of the rooms in a movie theater, you know? A private screening. He's like, I'm going to rent it out, and I have all my friends go, and we're going to sneak in alcohol, and it's going to be super great. And he let me come. So I was like, I mean, I'm going because you made me watch all these movies.
Right.
So I went, and before we like went to the movies, we like stocked up on alcohol. I bought like a bottle of absinthe, and then he bought some like cognac, and then I had like little bottles of vodka. and I poured it all into like plastic bags or like plastic bags with like a tube like pour out. And I took everything out of my purse, and it was just filled with plastic bags, plastic bottles of alcohol.
Just sloshing
around. And we got like little like shot glasses and stuff. And so all his friends came in. I met like pretty much all of his friends at once. I met like 20 of his friends at once that day. We drove all the way down to LA, which was like a 6-hour commute. And at the movies, I was like literally like going around the theater because rented it out. So it was just us, right? Going around with my like bottle bags of absinthe. And like giving everybody shots, like, anyone absinthe. And then I got each of us a big soda, and I like poured my vodka. He didn't know I was pouring it in his, but I was like pouring vodka in both of ours and like mixing it up. God. And he kept like handing the shot glass over to me, and I kept filling it up. So he and his friends took like 4 shots before the movie. We pre-gamed at this bar that was selling $1 beers. So we had like, amongst all of us, we had like 40 beers.
Yeah.
And
God.
So like I was already like drunk before the movie, and I just continued to drink during the movie. And I don't remember anything that happened in the movie.
I remember you sending me like a bunch of Snapchats. You're like, I am so drunk for this movie.
I know. I love when I do like get drunk, and then I'll just take a mirror picture and send it to my friends. Like, I'm drunk. Like, that's like my thing.
Yep.
I'm just like,
I'll never forget. You were in Vegas, and
oh my God,
you sent me one of those I'm drunk snaps. But it was like this really, really good selfie, and I'm so mad at myself for not screenshotting it.
You know how drunk I was in Vegas? I forgot about Vegas. So actually, well, now that you mention it, I remember, but I was like, oh yeah, that was a pretty drunk one. So that one was wild. But yeah, at F9. And then I like literally don't even remember going back to the hotel. I just remember like walking back into the hotel room. I couldn't tell you a thing that happens in that movie. Throughout it, I was like blacking in and out of consciousness.
Oh.
It was so, I was like trying to stay conscious. It was crazy. But that was after college. I'm trying to think of like in college stories. I know I've told you like all my craziest college stories. Okay. I want you to like tell me your favorites so I can retell them.
So the first one that came to mind, I love this story so much, is when you were in your friend's dorm room.
You can't even like say this with a straight face. I'm so excited. I think I know where this is going.
Yeah, when you're in your friend's dorm room and her roommate and her boyfriend got into a fight.
Oh no, I knew you were going to bring this up. I knew it. It was already in my brain when I asked.
I love this story so much.
Yeah, you love the story where I witnessed domestic violence.
Yeah. No, like I love like the situation that you're put in, because it's like I could totally see myself in that exact same situation doing the exact same thing as you.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This was so long. This was freshman year. So I don't know. Like I probably am not going to tell it the same. But let me try to recollect. Okay. So as mentioned earlier, my best friend freshman year, I'm calling her Bella. In the beginning of freshman year, I was friends with this girl named Sarah. That's her real name. Fuck her. I don't care. Who we were friends for the first maybe 2 months of school. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, she started not hating me, despising me. Out of nowhere, she just hated me. She refused to talk to me. She refused to look at me. And we were really close up until that point. I have pictures of us embracing and wearing couples costumes that Halloween.
Right.
And then she just, after Thanksgiving, she hated me. I don't know why. I still don't.
Whatever.
We have mutual friends, and I would ask them, what's the problem? And they were like, all she says is that you have issues. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking have issues, but what does that have to do with her? So anyway, this girl, Sarah, was roommates with Bella, my best friend. And I lived right next door to them. Our dorm floor was very small, so I was 2 doors over. And inside the rooms, they were so tiny. They were little box rooms. There was with 2 beds and 2 desks. The beds were 2, maybe 3 feet apart. One night, Bella and I decided to have a sleepover, which we would do often, and we decided to just snuggle up in her bed and have a sleepover. And Sarah happened to have her boyfriend visiting that night, her ex-boyfriend, because they went through it. Thank God her ex-boyfriend But at the time, her boyfriend was like visiting from her hometown a few hours away. And so, I mean, in retrospect, I don't know why we decided to have a sleepover in her room when her roommate's boyfriend was also sleeping over. Because our beds were like right next to each other. So me and her are snuggling, and 2 feet away, Sarah and her boyfriend are sleeping together. And that's just so weird now that I think about it. But whatever, it was college. That's what you do in college. When you want to get some from your boyfriend, you got to deal with your roommate sleeping right next to you. That's just how it goes. Mm-hmm. But I mean, luckily they didn't do anything like that, but they did fight in the middle of the night, and here's what happened. So we go, and it was so weird for me knowing that Sarah hated me that I decided to sleep in their room. I think I wanted to like annoy her, like, yeah, you hate me, but I'm best friends with your roommate, so you can't get rid of me. Mm-hmm. Like
I'm in your room.
Haha, you know, like I was like, I don't know why you hate me, but I'm gonna capitalize on it. But anyway, so me and Bella were snuggling, and these were twin beds, by the way, so we're very close. We're under the blankets. I literally have my arm around her, and we're facing the opposite way from their bed, so they're like kind of like behind me in the other bed, and we're just like snuggling. We're pretty much asleep at that point, but we're not. It's quiet. It's like 1 a.m. And all of a sudden, Sarah and her boyfriend just start like whispering to each other. And we could tell that it was like not friendly whispering. It was like, why would you even do that? Why would you even? I don't even know. And we were like, oh my God. But they were trying to stay quiet. But then like, I guess she just got so mad. She decided fuck the whispering and just started talking in a regular tone of voice. She was like, no, why did you do that? No, I didn't. You better get out right now. Like, she just like started arguing with him out loud. And I was like, all right, this is happening.
As you're laying there.
As I'm laying there, they probably think we're asleep because we are not moving. We are not breathing. But I was so tense. And I could tell Bella was facing away from me because we were like spooning. And we were both so tense. I could tell she was also awake. And we were just like, literally in my head, I was like, don't move. Don't breathe. Don't even like pretend you're not here. This is not happening. It was so uncomfortable that they're literally just, and then it ramps up and they're like yelling at each other right next to us. And I'm like, my grip is tightening on Bella. And I'm like, so uncomfortable. Don't move, don't breathe, don't move, don't breathe, don't make a sound. And we're just like suffering together as this is happening. And then it ramps up and up, and we hear a, and Sarah fucking slaps him in the face. And that, my whole body, I'd never been so tense in my life. My whole body like seized. I was like, oh. Because I'm not going to turn around and look at this, but it's happening right behind my head. And then she leaves. And then she leaves. Sarah leaves. And her boyfriend is just lying there next to us. Her boyfriend, who we don't really know because he's from a different town. And this is the first time we're ever meeting him, was this day. She leaves. And he's just laying there awake, obviously, like on his phone after just being slapped. I don't even know what the argument was about. I wish I remember. It was fucked up. And then Bella, just going from a state of not moving, not breathing like me, just sits up, walks out the room without saying a thing. So here I am. I'm not even in my own room. I'm laying in Bella's bed 2 feet away from Sarah's boyfriend. He knows I'm awake now. But I don't know what to do. I just lay there. I'm just laying on my back, eyes open, not wanting to turn. I sneak a peek over to Sarah's bed, and he glances at me at the same time, and we make eye contact. And I was like paralyzed. I was like, what do I do? And then luckily Bella walks back into the room, and she gets back in bed with me. And we put our head under the covers, and I was like, where did you go? And she was like, I went to look for Sarah. I couldn't find her. She just was gone. We found out later that she left our building and went to go sleep in her friend's room. And so Bella is now texting me on her phone. She's like typing it out so her boyfriend doesn't hear us, and is like, do you want to like go to your room? And I was like, yes. We should have been there this whole time. So literally we were like, okay, 1, 2, 3. And we got up and we just like left. We took all her blankets with us and we just shuffled out of the room and we slept in my bed and we didn't leave until like noon the next day. We're like, okay, we're going to have to go back to your room at some point and put your blankets back and face this shit. And we walked in the next day and Sarah's pissed off. She's back. But she is pissed off because they were going back to her hometown that day. And so she's in there angrily packing. And we're in there just like, hey. And then her boyfriend is trying to act like nothing happened. He was like, hey, what's up? Good morning, guys. How are you? What's your plan? And Sarah was like, stop being fucking fake. And then he was like, okay. And then we were like, okay. I was like, this is too awkward for me. I'm going to go back to my room. And
you're like, I don't need to be here.
I don't even know why I came back with her, honestly. So, and that's that story. And then Sarah, actually, I think she ended up cheating on that guy. I don't know.
Oh, well, surprise, surprise.
With like one of our other friends, and then she dated this different guy. So I mean, I'm glad they're not together anymore. Toxic. Yeah. So I hope she's found a happier relationship since then. So yeah, that's that story that you love so much. It was one of the most awkward things that's ever happened to me.
I love that story so much because like it's such like a Raven story where I'm like, yeah, like I could just see you laying there in bed, like your heart pounding, being like, what do I do? What do I do? I'm just going to stay calm and I'm going to stay quiet. Then all of a sudden, like, your friend just gets up and leaves. It's like, what the fuck? What do I do?
I was not prepared. I was like, holy shit. Well, I mean, what do you do in that situation other than stay still and hope it ends?
I'd probably just be like, 3, 2, 1, go.
That's what we did.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff like that happened to me in college. And mostly like the first 2 years of college were like when the weird stuff happened.
Yeah.
And then after that, it kind of evened out. But yeah, freshman year especially. You know,
that
I want to talk about like firsts with you.
Okay.
And like bad, weird dating kind of things, because this is reminding me of my freshman year. Like I had never had like a real relationship at that point. I'd had guys like me.
Yeah.
And my senior year of high school, I did have a guy who like I went on a few dates with, and he wanted me to be his girlfriend, but I like was not ready at that point. He liked me too much, and I was like scared. Yeah. I was scared of the affection. I was not ready for all that attention because I still like I didn't feel good about myself, so I was like, how can somebody else like me? And it wasn't until college that I started like accepting myself and putting myself out there, right?
Right.
So college is like not the first time I tried dating, but the first time I tried like seriously dating, like ready for it dating. And one of those first experiences, and this is kind of the subject I kind of want to get into, is kind of like almost relationships. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where you go on like 3, maybe 4 dates with somebody. During that time, you're like only texting them. You think it might go somewhere, and then it doesn't. Where it's kind of like in between dating and a relationship, you know?
Yeah, it's like, I think they call that like the talking stage, where it's like you're just kind of like talking.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of like, and sometimes like when I'm telling stories about these people who like I hung out with for a few months, I'll refer to them as exes, but really it was like an almost relationship. It was just like dating.
Yeah.
It's just easier to say like an ex, you know?
Yeah, like it wasn't like an official relationship, but it's like there was like something there. Like there was like a connection.
Right, exactly. So I have a few like that. And my first one in college was with this guy. I'm not going to say his name because horrible. I went on a date with this guy. I'm going to call him Gary.
Okay.
And I thought he was really cool. We went on like 3 dates, and I was like, this is so exciting. Like I've never like felt this way before. The guy I had been to on dates previously, I was just kind of shut off from him. He was really a nice guy, and I was attracted to him, but like I said, I wasn't ready. So this was my first like I'm ready to date, and I think this is going somewhere. And I hadn't really felt that way before, and so I got too attached too quickly. And that was partially my fault, but also like he's an asshole, because what happened was we went on like 3 dates. On the 3rd one, he was hanging out with me at my dorm when we were watching movies, and we like ended the night by like making out. Mm-hmm. And that was only the 2nd time I had ever made out with anybody. So for me, it was a super serious thing, right? And I remember texting you. Yeah. After that happened, I remember texting you because I was updating you on all of my stuff, and we had a thing where like when I got a boyfriend or when I ever slept with anybody, I would tell you first.
Right. I remember that.
Because I was like super good girl virgin, you know? So I was like, you get all the updates. So after he left that night, I texted you and was like, I just made out with somebody. And then you were like, oh, awesome. Do you like him? And I was like, yeah, I think we're dating now.
Yep. I remember this actually. Yeah, I remember that because you're like, I think we're dating now. I remember I was thinking like, does she think that they're dating or what is this?
And the fucked up thing is, he never talked to me after that.
Yep.
I texted him and he would text me back like 1-word answers.
Yeah.
And then I was like, let me not text him first and see how long it takes for him to text me first. And he never did. And I never spoke to him again after like that next week.
Yep.
So that was heartbreaking.
That happened to me. That was like a first for me. I remember I was talking to someone and I kind of thought something was going somewhere. And this was like, I think I was like 16 or something. I thought Celine was like going somewhere. And like we met up. I thought we had like a great time and it was like really good. And we only like hugged. Like we didn't like, that was it. I remember afterwards I was just like, oh my God, like that was so cool. And then like I literally like did not hear from like that person afterwards. I remember like same thing as you. I texted a couple times and like got like nothing back. And I'm just like, let me like not text you and see what happens. Right. And then like that was it.
I was just like, what happened? And that one I feel like I wasn't really what he was looking for. I'm pretty sure he was just looking for a hookup anyway. And after I made out with him and didn't sleep with him, I'm sure he was like, not worth my time. Where I was looking for something different. And I could have come off a little bit like something that happened a lot if like freshman year when I would date guys is I would come off a little too eager. And, you know, I was just excited, you know, about the prospect of dating somebody, and everybody else had more like a casual opinion about it. And so it's like, ooh, too attached too fast. And so they stopped talking to me. And like, I get it. I'm not mad about it now. But at the time I was like, why isn't he talking to me anymore? I thought it was going so, and not just him, but like multiple guys that year. I was like, what happened? And then that happened again. This is funny. After, said breakup that I mentioned earlier, where you were hanging out with me afterwards, that, because this was after like a 4-year relationship, so it was a pretty big deal. And I think like just like a couple weeks later, like maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks tops later, I got on Tinder, and that was way too soon because it was still all I could think about. And I snuck out because my mom was like very like protective about COVID at this time. So she was like, don't go anywhere. You don't have to, blah, blah, blah. So I said I was meeting up with one of my friends, and I met this guy who actually went to my same college, we found out, and we had lunch together.
Oh, that's cool.
And he bought the lunch, so it was like a real date.
Aww.
I know, except it didn't feel romantic at all. Like he never complimented me or anything, but like whatever. So,
all right, weird. Okay.
But to be honest, like I wasn't looking for like a relationship because I just got out of one, right?
Yeah.
I was just like,
you're kind of looking for attention.
I want attention. I want someone to hang out with. If it turns into dating, like great, but really I just want someone to hang out with. Like I'm lonely, right?
Right.
And I think just me being lonely and wanting a friend made me come off too eager and made it seem like I was like falling in love with him super fast when I just really wanted him as a friend. But I'm sure it came off like I was like, I remember texting him afterwards. When we had lunch, we hung out for like 4 or 5 hours just talking. Like I thought we had a great connection. And he was like cute. He kind of had like a Patrick Stump vibe going on. I don't remember his name, but it was like a cool name. So I was like, ooh, 2 cool names, you know? So
yeah.
And I remember texting him after. He was saying that he like had car problems or whatever, or he was gonna sell his car soon. And I was like, okay, so like you could visit me like maybe like every weekend or whatever, and then when you sell your car, like I'll come and visit you, and we could like switch off. We could like meet halfway. And I was like trying to make all these plans to like hang out with him again. And then he didn't talk to me for like 4 days, and I was like, oh, I guess that's it. I guess I ruined that one. I thought like we got along so good. And we even talked about during our date, I told him about this podcast I listened to about like people who get ghosted, and then like it's a radio station podcast, and those radio hosts call the person that ghosted to find out why. And I was telling him about how like I would never be on that show because I would never ghost somebody. Like if I didn't think it was going to work out, I would say it, and I've done that before.
Yeah.
And if someone ghosts me, I don't care enough to reach out because I don't think that's a good start to a relationship. No. So if someone ghosts me, it's like, okay, like if you're the type of person to ghost me, you're not the type of person for me, right?
Right.
And he agreed. He was like, yeah, like ghosting is horrible. And then he ghosted me. for like 3 or 4 days. And I was like, okay, what? Like, I didn't, like, I texted him and then he just like never opened it. And I was like, all right. And I didn't try to double text. I didn't try to follow up. I wasn't like, hey, what happened? I was just like, this is over, you know? Like, I accepted.
Yeah.
But then after the 4 days, he texted me and was like, hey, I know I said I wasn't the type to ghost, and then I ended up doing that to you anyway, so I'm sorry, but I just don't have time for another person in my life right now, so we should end things here. And I was like, okay.
Right.
Cool. Thanks for letting me know. And that was it. And I could tell over that text that he was so nervous to send that to me, that he was like scared, and it took him so long just for me to be like, okay, I don't care.
He probably had it in his notes app, and he just kind of kept like looking at it, and he's like, I'm gonna copy and paste it.
I was
3,
like,
2, 1. I sent it.
I think we are on different pages for this, bro, because I just thought you were cool and wanted to like watch movies with you. I wasn't trying to do anything, but like, okay, like, all right.
Yeah, all right, bye.
So that was fun. And then I was like, yeah, maybe I'm not ready for dating apps right now. I want to know, like, because I didn't know you when you were, like, first going out on dates and, like, your first kiss and stuff. But, like, you knew me through all that stuff.
Right.
And so, like, I kind of want to hear, like, first dates or, like, bad dates. I actually don't have any bad date stories, just, like, dates that were good and then it ended badly, but like no like dates that were bad. So I'm curious if like you have any of that.
Yeah, I've had a couple like dating experiences where I don't know if I'd like say like, wow, that was a bad date, but like one where like I definitely like walked away from it and I was just like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
I want to hear about one of those.
I went on this like one date once, and like I remember like at first when we first kind of started talking, like I was kind of like interested at first because like I think I was just more like interested in like the attention.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, okay, like this person thinks I'm attractive. They seem to kind of like put like an effort out for me. Like, you know, it seems like that, you know, like they want to get my attention and stuff. And, you know, and they were doing it in ways where I was like, oh, like it's really like appealing. Like, so it was through Bumble, and like they were saying stuff like, oh, like, you know, what bands do you listen to? Because I put something about how I listen to like weird music. And so they were doing that and kind of like making an effort. I remember like I was like, oh, that's really sweet and everything. And then like we like made plans to like meet, and then like they got kind of like pushed back. So then they got, you know, pushed back like another week, and I was just like, okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever. But like that's when we were like getting to like know one another and like talking, and like the more that like we were talking, the more I was kind of being like, I was like, I don't know how I feel now. I'm like, you know, it's one of those where I'm like, I'm starting to get a different vibe.
Right.
And like it was nothing that like I thought they were bad, like nothing that like where I was just like, this is concerning. It was more just where I was just like, I don't think I'm seeing this, like if we were to date, like this would not work. I remember just thinking like, I don't know, but then we already like made plans to like meet up, and I was just like, all right, well, like I'll still like meet up and like I'll say hi, but like I'm just like not gonna give any signals.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be so awkward.
It was pretty awkward and stuff. He was really nice and sweet, but like I remember just like the whole time, and like he was like kind of like already like acting like we were already kind of like a thing, and I was just like, I don't know.
Red flag.
Like, yeah, and I was like, I don't really know and stuff, and I was kind of feeling a little weird, but like I was already like there, and so I'm like, well, I don't want to be a dick because I'm like here. It was still like a fun like, you know, date. Like we went to Great America, and like it was still fun. Yeah, and it was still fun, and like we rode rides, and like, you know, it was what it was. But I remember like the whole time I was there, like I was like feed into anything. And then and then like kind of like towards the end, like, you know, I was like, okay, thank you so much. I gave him a hug, and like kind of felt like he wanted to like pull me in a little bit, and I was just like, oh, by the way, for those that are listening, I'm not like my sexuality is I identify as Jarrod. Like I kind of.
I was just gonna say, like, did we mention before this that you date guys sometimes? Like, are they gonna? I don't think they'll be confused. No,
yeah. I mean, yeah. Also, I should probably mention that. Like, I have like, you know, like I'm a very open-minded person, but like to be honest, like I have a boyfriend now, and I love him so much, and like he literally is like so amazing and so awesome. I know.
And he's a big fan of me. Yay.
He's a huge fan of you, and it's
Shout
so
out
great.
Hector.
Shout out to Hector. He's amazing. I love him so much. That's why I'm like, all right, like, you know, sorry for telling the story, but this guy I went on a date with, prior to Hector. I just remember I was just like, I don't want to like give off any signals or something. And then I remember like after like the date, like, you know, I don't know if it was a date or anything. I don't even know what it was. But I remember afterwards, like I texted him and I was just like, hey, I had a really great time tonight. I just want to let you know, like, I'm not really looking for anything further than maybe just like being friends. I said, I thought you're really cool, but you know, if you're thinking this is going to be a relationship, I don't see it working on my end. And
harsh but fair.
And I felt really bad. Like I felt really bad saying this, but I was just like, I'm sorry. Like,
yeah. Well, better than ghosting. Like, you know, then he won't like wonder what went wrong because you told him. You're like, it's just not gonna work, and like that's hard to do, and that's hard to hear. But it's better than nothing.
Yeah, and like at first, like, you know, he was just like, oh, like, can we still stay friends? And I'm just like, yeah, sure, but like, no.
I've only had to do that once. There was another time I should have done it, and I ended up like leading on the guy until he like understood that it wasn't going to happen, and I like do feel bad about that, but I'll talk about that later. But the one where like I had to like tell the guy like, hey, this isn't going to work out, and I really tried to avoid it. I really did, but at some point you can't avoid it. It was this guy, I don't remember his name, so I mean, I would do a fake one anyway, but it doesn't matter.
Right.
I only went on, I want to say like 2 dates with him, maybe just one, and we also like texted for a while.
Yeah.
And it was in Oregon freshman year. That's when I went on a lot of singular dates, was freshman year, because I met my college boyfriend sophomore year.
Yeah.
So freshman year I went on a bunch of one-offs.
Yes.
Sometimes two. And this one guy, I already wasn't super attracted to him, to be honest with you, but I was kind of just like dating whoever wanted to meet up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I could learn to like him, you know?
Right.
And he was nice, and we texted for a while, and he seemed really like into me, and we like hung out. He came over to my dorm, and like we watched a movie with my friends. And so like that was nice. And then I found out that he was a brony. And
I remember this. That's right.
For those that don't know, a brony is a guy that's really into My Little Pony. He said he was a former brony, but he was like not like, he wasn't saying like, oh, I used to be a brony. Like he was like proud of it. And you know, like what you like, but like that's not my crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he was really into anime and stuff, and like not like that's a bad thing. Like I've seen some animes, I think it's good. It's just like that type of guy is not really my type of guy, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
And
he's
then,
for someone else.
Right. But even then, like I was still like talking to him, you know, and I was still like, I can try to give this a chance, even though like I can already tell we don't have a lot in common. But what really stuck the nail in the coffin on this potential relationship, because he did want to like go further with me after we hung out. And I like texted him. I was hanging out with my friend. I had like this whole day off from school, and I was going to hang out with my friend at like 7 p.m., but I was like free before that. And I was like, hey, do you want to come hang out with me? We could like, I've always wanted to like walk around the graveyard that was near me as a date. And he was willing to do that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I was like, do you want to walk around? Yeah. Do you want to walk around the graveyard with me? And he was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And for context, he lived like 40 minutes away from me, so he had to drive a little bit far. So when I asked him to do that, I was like, okay, awesome. We can hang out for like maybe a good couple of hours, but then at 7, I have to go do something with my friend. And so we would have gotten to hang out for like 3.5 hours. And he was like, no, that's not worth it. Sorry. And I was like, really offended by that. Because like, I get that he had to drive kind of far. He had to drive 40 minutes to come see me. And 40 minutes is kind of long. And then just to hang out with someone for 3 hours. But I feel like if you really like the person, like it is worth it. Like if he really liked me, it wouldn't matter that it was only 3 hours. It's like, because if I really like a person, I'll like do anything to be with them. You know this. I've like joined clubs I've cared nothing about. Right. Just
Can I say it?
No, you can't. If you say what club I joined just to get with a guy, like everybody from college is going to know who you're talking about. So
okay, I won't say it.
But like things where I had to like wake up at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday just to like hang out with a guy that I liked, you know? Like I'll do that because I think it's worth it, like to be with the person that I like. And so I was like, obviously this isn't going to work if like I'm not worth it, you know, if I'm not worth a 40-minute drive.
Right.
So I was like, and if it isn't worth it for 3 hours, then like the only time we can hang out is when we can hang out all day, which isn't going to be very often.
Right.
And he also on the first date, when he was watching movies with me and my friends, he asked to stay over because the drive was so long. And I was like, this is my first time meeting you.
Yeah.
And he's like, not in bed with you, like I'll sleep on your floor. And I was like, well, I have a roommate.
Yeah.
And my room is tiny and I don't know you, so no.
This guy is staying over. Let us even go here.
And again, I was like, I get that you don't want to drive that far, but like no. Like, so after that, I kind of just started like giving him the cold shoulder. Like I started doing the 1-word answers and saying that I was like busy and whatever. Because I didn't want to come out and say like, hey, like I don't want to date you, you know, like I felt like that was mean and I didn't know how to phrase it. And so he would just kind of, and I feel bad because I was kind of like leading him on.
Yeah.
But I thought like he would get the hint. Like I'm obviously not interested, but I'm too nice to just like ignore you. Mm-hmm. And so he finally, like 2 weeks later, after we didn't hang out again, but he had been texting me and I was just like, whatever. He was like, hey, listen, I still really like you and like I want this to work. So like can we like make it work? And I was like, you know what? No.
Oh my God.
And I finally was like, okay, you know what? You're not getting the hint, so I'm just gonna come right out and say it. I don't want to date you. I was really offended when you said it wasn't worth it to hang out with me, so let's just end this here. And he was like, oh. And that's how that ended. And that's the only time I ever had to do that. Yeah, there was one other time where I did that to a guy, and I feel really bad because I really did like him. Mm-hmm. But what happened was it was like the best first date with someone who I didn't end up dating that I'd ever had, where we met at a Starbucks. We talked for hours. We just really connected. We both we talked about movies, and we both liked animation. Like he did animation as like a side hobby. Zootopia had just come out, and so he was like, hey, I'm gonna take you to see Zootopia right now then. And so we ended up, Starbucks date turned into a movie date, and he bought me ice cream, and we just spent the day together and just connected. And then we went on one more date after that, and then his friend got sick and he had to take care of him.
Yeah.
And so he didn't talk to me for like 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. But I knew it's because his friend was sick, and I understood, but I moved on, you know, like we went on 2 dates, and I really liked him and connected him, but I was young and in college. Like I'm not going to wait 6 months for a guy I was never in a relationship with. We just hung out, you know.
You're not obligated to do anything.
Right. And if he had asked me to wait for him, like I would have considered it. If he was like, hey, listen, like I want to be with you, but like let me take care of this first, I probably would have done it, to be honest. I at least wouldn't have like tried to seek somebody else out, you know. Mm-hmm. After that during that 6 months, I had met my ex-boyfriend, and we had like just started dating. We weren't like official yet, but it was definitely going there. Right. And that's when this other guy finally reached out to me again.
I remember this.
And I was like, this is the worst time because I'm literally just starting something. If you had caught me 2 weeks ago, then we would have gotten out again. But you're just catching me going into like what's going to be a relationship. And it's like I could have gone on a date with him anyway because I wasn't official with my ex at this point. We were just kind of dating. I could have, but I could see it was going somewhere. So I was like, I'm not going to start this again just to have to end it again. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know what to say to him because he was being like extra nice. I think he was like trying to be extra nice and extra charming because it had been so long since he talked to me. Yeah. So he was like extra flirty. He was like, hey, how's my busy little student? Like, let's hang out. Like, whatever. And I was like, oh, yeah, you know, I have a show to work on. Plus I have tons of homework and I'm like working on top of it. I just like have no free time right now. And I did that for like 2-3 weeks where I was like, yeah, no, like I'll totally like want to meet up. I just like have a lot going on right now, you know? Right. And he kept trying to hang out and I was like, dude, like, sorry, I can't. And then he eventually got it and we stopped talking. And I do like feel bad about that. I don't feel bad about like not dating him again. Like I wouldn't have changed things. Right. But I would have like been more honest and like not led him on. Cause I do feel bad. I still think about it sometimes like that was kind of mean. Like I gave him hope and then I just let him figure it out on his own, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sometimes that happens.
Sometimes that happens, but yeah, I don't know. That's like,
but then like what we were saying earlier too, like we've kind of been on like the receiving end of it too, where it's like where like the other person was like that to us. So
it's happened to me and like we've done it to people and like I think it makes me not as mad when people did it to me like later on, like later when I started dating again initially, and that would happen to me, like that guy that ghosted me that I told you about. I wasn't mad about it because I was like, I probably would have done the same thing, you know?
Yeah. And at that point too, it's like I don't even really like know you that well.
Yeah, and it's like we met once. Like, it's really not a big deal. It's not like when I was a kid and everything was so serious. Like, I'm an adult now. Like, I've been through it. I've had like all the relationship stuff. Like, it's not like I don't care anymore. Like, I don't play games. If you don't want to talk to me, don't talk to me.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, I probably would have been an insufferable girlfriend in high school if I had a boyfriend in high school. I would have never let that guy alone. If I had a boyfriend in high school, I would have never let them alone. I'd be like, you have to walk me to every class. And like, I had such this romanticized view of love when I was younger.
Oh, I feel like a lot of kids have like that like romanticized view of love. Like, it's like you see someone in a relationship, oh my God, like, you know, they're doing so well, like they're in a relationship, like, when you're in high school. Meanwhile, like, they could have so much drama going on,
Right.
and like both parties are miserable.
I was like, I bet kissing is so magical, and I bet like sex is so romantic and great. And then like when I did all those things, I was like, you know,
yeah, it
is what it is. Like, oh, I guess I'm not in a romance movie. I'm just a regular person.
Like, am I not special?
Yeah. Oh, but except I actually had like a really bad experience the first time I, you know, did it. Mm-hmm. And I probably texted you. Do you remember what I like texted you after that happened?
Well, I remember I got 2 messages from you. I got the one of where you were like, okay, when it finally happens, I'm gonna take, you know,
like I was gonna take like a selfie after like, doing it for the first time.
I mean, there's that, and then the message afterwards that kind of explained what happened.
Yeah, and I don't really want to get into it, but it was not magical. It kind of just like shattered my whole view of like sex and romance. I was like, oh, actually, life is shitty. And shitty things happen to people.
Love isn't real.
Love isn't real. I used to say that all the time.
I remember that. Love isn't real.
Before I ever had a boyfriend, because I was so hopeless. I was like, no one's ever going to want to date me. Like, I felt so ugly and whatever at the time, you know? No. I had such low self-confidence. I thought nobody's ever going to love me. I was worried about ever, like, getting married or even finding a relationship in college. I thought I wouldn't until, like, I was old. Like, I was so hopeless about it. And I was just like, love isn't real. Like, it's not. Like, I'm never going to feel it. And then I did, and I stopped saying that. So.
Right.
But yeah, I used to say that all the time. People would make fun of me.
I remember
like,
that.
All my friends were like, yeah, Raven, we know love isn't real. And then, I mean, that's probably what led my friends to set me up with my ex in the first place. They're like, you need to stop saying that. Here, have a boyfriend.
Here, just take him.
And it fixed me for a while.
There you go.
For a little bit.
For a little bit, yeah. I have not heard you say that in like a really long time though.
Well, I don't believe it anymore.
I know. As one of your best friends, I love your boyfriend.
Yeah, my current boyfriend.
I think he's awesome. He
is great. Who I'm in love with now. I fell out of love and I was like, oh no, love isn't real again. And then I found it again, and then here we are. Yes. And I still believe, and you know, I don't ever want this one to end, but like if it does, like I'll still believe in love because I felt it, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I can tell he really loves you, and I can tell that you really love him. I've said this to you before, but you and then one other friend of mine are the only like friends of mine that are in a relationship where I actually like the other person, and I like the other person for them, and I'm like, oh, like I like their relationship, like I think, you know, like they're a good boyfriend, a good girlfriend.
Our relationship inspired you to get a better relationship.
It did. It did.
Because I was in the same boat, but with you, I was like, I don't want to tell Jarrod to break up with his boyfriend. It happened anyway. His ex, not your current boyfriend. Your current boyfriend's great and treats you really nice, and he's great, but like your ex before him. I was like, I don't want to tell him that this should end, but it should. And then it did. And I was like, oh, thank God. Find somebody better.
And I did.
And you did. And I did too. Yeah. And here we are.
And it was funny too, because I remember like I met Hector and we started dating like a year after you and Kyle started dating. And I remember literally like feeling like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm following in Raven's footsteps.
Yeah, you are.
And I remember like Hector, like, you know, he said something really nice. He said something really nice, and he gave me like a really nice compliment. And I remembered one thing that you said. Kyle said something really nice to you, and you were like, "Oh my God, like me? Like you're saying that to me?" And
I still do that whenever he compliments me.
Well, so then when Hector said that to me, I was like, me? You saying that about me?
Yeah, we both did. We figured out our worth, and we found somebody who appreciated us and treated us how we deserve to be treated. Good for us.
Good for us. Good for us.
One last thing, since we were talking about like kind of like first like dating experiences and whatever. Well, I didn't even talk about my first date, which my first like I guess like date. What my friend Opal set me up on a date with this guy, and it was the most awkward date I've ever had in my life. She like set me up on a blind date with her nerdy friend, and he was like super awkward and quiet. And after the date, I was like, why did you you know that I'm awkward and quiet, so why would you set me up with someone who's awkward and quiet? And she's like, I thought you could like bond over it, like you have stuff in common. I'm like, no, if I'm awkward and quiet, you gotta hook me up with someone who's the opposite, so we're not just sitting in silence the whole time. And that's what happened. We went to IHOP, and I made her stay on the date with us, so she was on the date with us because I felt too awkward about being alone with this guy. It was so, I don't even remember most of it. I just remember it was horribly awkward, and I never spoke to him again. And then I didn't have another date later until that guy I told you about who wanted me to be his girlfriend, and I wasn't ready for it. We went on like 2 or 3 dates, and he was really nice, and those dates felt like practice dates to me. Like practice dates until college, when I went out with that guy who made out with me and never spoke to me again. And then I had that series of one-off dates, and then I met my ex. And I remember our first date, we saw Doctor Strange, and both of our cards got declined at the kiosk. First his, and I was like, okay, I'll get this one. And then I tried to pay, and my card got declined. And so we had to go off to the side and like transfer money into our bank accounts.
That is so funny.
So we could see, and that was that. And then my first date with Kyle, he actually visited me for lunch when I worked at Best Buy.
I thought that was literally the most romantic thing ever. I literally told so many people about that. I'm like, y'all, you have to hear about like my best friend's like first date.
It was so romantic. And he did that a few times. He would like, I usually went to lunch the same time every day. And he would drive, and he lived like 3 towns over, so he was like a good like 30 minutes away. He would drive just to hang out with me during my 45-minute lunch and then go home. So like I mentioned earlier, it's worth it if you like the person enough.
That's true. That's true. He showed up.
That's a life lesson for you, brony boy, who I was talking about earlier. Because Kyle did it, and it was worth it, and now we live together.
He made the effort.
He made the effort. That's important, is making the effort for somebody you like. And if you don't want to make the effort, then like they're obviously not worth it to you.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, I also still think about your Valentine's Day surprise that he did for you.
Oh my gosh, you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, because that was like such like a good thing.
Honestly, I don't know how he's gonna like top Valentine's Day. Because we've had 2 together so far, and I just like, I'm curious to see what happens the next one. Because the first one is what you're talking about. The first one,
yes,
it was, still, I mean, it's still COVID times now, but it was a little bit more serious COVID times then.
Right. It was like COVID.
Right. And so it was like, we could have gone to a restaurant, but like the restaurants were still like very strict, like with their seating and mask policies and stuff. And it was just like not the safest thing. So it's like, what are we going to do for our first Valentine's Day together? We both wanted to be very special, because I hadn't had a good Valentine's Day in a while. Like even with my ex, like we were long distance for a while. So we like didn't spend Valentine's Day together last like year. And Kyle had like never spent a Valentine's Day with a girl before. So he wanted to be special for that reason too. So he had a surprise. He didn't tell me what we were doing, but he said that we had plans. And I was like, okay. And I was like thinking in my head what it could be, because he refused to tell me. Like he said we were going to eat. And so I was like, okay, like, are we going to go out somewhere? But even though, like, it's COVID, like, where could we possibly go? What's open, what's around? Maybe we're going to have, like, a picnic or something. I didn't know. And I wasn't trying to guess because I wanted to be surprised. So what happened was he picked me up at my house, and I got all dressed up. I look so pretty. And he was like, oh, we gotta stop by my house first to pick something up, but the place we're going is in the town where he lives, so it made sense that we would stop by his house. Right. So we stopped by, and he like was trying to open the garage door, and the garage door opener like wasn't working to get into the house. And he's like, oh, I gotta go around the back. Come with me so you're not just like waiting in the car. And I was like, okay. So we go around the back to his backyard, and he has his backyard table was set up with like this pink tablecloth. He was playing music, this like romance playlist of like artists that I listen to. So like Justin Bieber was like playing. He had like our favorite like chips and salsa were set out. There was balloons on my chair. There was like a big ass gift in the other chair. These like pretty red plates and like hearts all over the place. And he set up the grill, and he cooked us steaks right there. And he had like he had my favorite kind of LaCroix. And
didn't he get with the chips and salsa like the salsa from one store and the chips from another store?
Yeah, because it was like my favorite chips from here, but my favorite salsa's from Trader Joe's. So we got that, and then I had to get my favorite chips from somewhere else. It was like so sweet. He set up this whole little romantic thing in the backyard, and everybody loved that story. Obviously, I know you did. It was so romantic. We had such a great night.
That was another story I told everybody. I'm just like, y'all, I'm like, my friend Raven had the Valentine's Day experience.
Hey, what? And then all I could think about after it was over is like, how is he going to top himself next Valentine's Day? But he did. He did. It was also a surprise, so I didn't know what we were doing until we pulled into what we were doing, and he had booked us a horse riding tour through the Hollywood Hills,
which is so cool.
Because we had already moved to LA at that point as of last Valentine's Day, and so I hadn't ridden a horse since I was like a child doing it at a carnival,
right?
And it was like we were right next to the Hollywood sign. It was breathtaking. It was crazy.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so we'll see what he does next year. So
we'll see.
Yeah, but yeah, that's like a lot of like my first and stuff with like Kyle. But let's go way back, and I each want us to tell one more story before we end here. And I want to hear your first kiss story, like a real one, not like you're a kid at the monkey bars, you know?
Okay, yeah.
That doesn't count.
I just remember like first kiss that like it meant something, or
yes.
like that, or just okay. I remember it was like my high school ex, and it was like right after like our first date. And like I remember like our first date, like it went really well, and like everything I thought was like great, and like we connected like really well, and it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember like, you know, he was dropping me off back at my house, and then, you know, of course he was like, oh, okay, that was so awesome, thank you so much. And then, you know, he did the whole like he leaned in, grabbed my shirt, kissed, you know, like kissed me or whatever. And I remember like I was just like, whoa, like this is the first time like I'm kissing like a guy, but like he wanted to kiss me, like.
Exciting.
Whoa, like that was like crazy, and it was like really like exciting. And so like I remember like that was like a good experience. Obviously the relationship was like not good, but like that moment was like, I remember like that moment was like really good. And I remember like I would say like that was like a really good, like I guess like, you know, like first kiss. Like
yeah,
I feel like my experience of like a first kiss, I can look back on the experience and say like, no, that was a good experience.
Good. I remember one time with one of your exes, one of the ones that I met, you guys came over to my house and like made out on my couch for like 2 hours.
Oh my God.
And it was another very awkward experience. It felt like forever. I was literally sitting on my floor and you were laying with him on my couch. And then you guys broke up like not long later.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't even know if we really dated. That was just the something.
That's so funny. Yeah. You know, I still am mutuals with a lot of your exes, like on Instagram.
Oh, God. I don't have any of yours.
I only have like one, and I don't want anyone to still follow me. Okay, anyway, but I'll tell you mine, and then we'll wrap up for now.
All right. Let's hear yours.
You probably already know about it, except I didn't meet you until like a year like after this, or like this same year, but we didn't become friends until like a year after this happened. I was 15, and at that point I was like, I felt way late to the game. I was like, everybody else has been kissing this whole time, and here's me. I think that's why I felt so ugly, because I never got any like attention from boys ever until this moment. And I don't know, I was very frumpy. I loved wearing sweatshirts. I still do. Yeah. So I was just a little frump, and I didn't wear makeup or anything either at the time. So I was just like,
you didn't need to. Well, and you also still don't need to.
Well, now I feel like I've grown into my looks better, but when I was younger, like I felt so ugly. This was like before I had braces, so my teeth were fucked up. So I was like, not, you know, nobody wanted to kiss me at the time, you know. So I went to church camp, and like I had braces at this point, so like I was like transitioning into my glow up at this point. Like
it was happening. Puberty was in full effect.
Yes, puberty was making me better at this point. I was just starting to, and so I was at church camp, and also I've been to church camp multiple years at this point. I went like it was in the winter, so I went like every Christmas break. I would go to church camp for, it was like a long week, like 4 days. And this was the first time. This was maybe like the fourth or fifth time I'd gone, but it's the first time that my brother also went, which was so awkward because this was my first and only camp romance, was the same time. But with my brother being there, he like tried to stop it, and I was like, "You're ruining this for me. Why couldn't this for me? Why couldn't have this happened any other time I went to church camp?" But the one time my brother's there, and also everyone thought my brother was so cool. Like everyone just wanted to hang out with my brother, and I was like, guys.
Oh, yeah, Devin's awesome.
Yeah, but he stole all the spotlight from me. That was supposed to be like my year.
That's fair. That's fair.
No, I'm joking. It was cool to have him there, but like it was also really awkward because everyone knew what was going on. You know, all the kids in our church went, and it was with like a bunch of other kids from other churches. And what happened was he was just this guy who I'd seen in church before. He was like a year older than me, who I still have him on Facebook. I haven't talked to him in like 10 years, but I still have him on Facebook, and he has a baby now. So congrats to him.
Congrats to him.
So, but anyway, I started just like teasing him, because that's how I let people know that I liked them, is I would just like tease them and be weird. And he actually like played into it, which no one ever had done before. Like I would steal his hat, and he would like wrap his arms around me to try to get it back. And that was just like me trying to get physical touch. And then, like, 2 days into it, he, like, asked me to come with him somewhere, and he, like, held my hand, and it was the first time anyone had held my hand, and he said I was cute, and it's the first time anyone had said I was cute in a romantic context. It was a very big deal for me. It was a very big weekend, very transformative. Right. I think, like, 2 or 3 days into it, like halfway through camp, it was like after like the night church service, it was dark. We were like the first people out. We go and sit in the ice rink. We're all alone. And he'd been trying to kiss me already at that point. He'd mostly just been kissing my cheeks, which was also like the first time I'd had that in a romantic context. Yeah. And I kept telling him, this is cringe of me, but I was like, I don't want to kiss you until like I have like a good story. Like I want to be able to have like a good, cute story to tell my friends.
Right.
And so that's why I hadn't kissed him until like day 3 of camp. Because I felt like the story wasn't good enough yet. I was like, I need something romantic to happen. Like we're on top of the mountain or something.
Yeah, you're like, I need a whole like scene.
I need a scene. And I was like, I need something to tell my friends. And instead of being like, you're a weirdo, he was like, well, you could tell your friends that you met a really nice guy at camp, and he likes you a lot, and he really wanted to kiss you. And I thought it was like so smooth that I was like sold. And then I kissed him. We kissed we had like 2 or 3 like small kisses, and then like suddenly I was like overwhelmed with like being uncomfortable. I think it was like my religious guilt kicking in, which I don't really.
Catholic guilt.
Right, except it was like Christian because I went to Catholic school, and like the church was Christian, and it was like very strict on that stuff. And like I grew up thinking that like pretty much everything is wrong and bad that has to do with those kinds of feelings. So I don't feel that anymore. I've made a lot of progress, but at the time I was just like suddenly very scared by these feelings. So I was like, okay, I don't want to kiss you anymore. Let's just go back to kissing my cheek. And so like I didn't kiss him again like the rest of camp. And then we like didn't date or anything, but that was my first kiss. The story is now, ironically, I wanted a story so freaking bad. The story is now. The story's
great.
The whole story is that I tell people is that I had my first kiss at church camp, and that's just, I don't need to say more than that. You know, that's the story right there.
That's the whole thing right there. You're like, I met him at church camp and we kissed.
And I didn't kiss anybody else until a year later. I went to my friend's prom with him. My friend who like got kicked out of my high school, he went to another high school. He invited me to his prom, and he like ignored me a lot of the night, and so I ended up talking to his friend like most of the night. And my prom date was like driving me and his friend home, and I was just like hardcore flirting with his friend the whole time. And when we dropped him off, I was in the front seat, he was in the back seat. I literally just like turned around and we started like awkwardly making out with my prom date in the driver's seat. And I was like, that's what you get for ignoring me the whole night.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I made out with his friend, except I'd never made out with any of it at that point, so I didn't know what to do. So I go in mouth closed. He goes in mouth open and like licks my closed mouth. And I was like, ew. And I never talked to him again. Mouth. He did. It was like, so I was like, let's try again. And then I tried to open my mouth and we just awkwardly like mashed our mouths together. God. And that was the first time I ever made out with anybody. And I didn't make out with anybody again until yet another year after that. when we get back to the story. The story that I first told you where I made out with that guy and I thought we were dating and then he never talked to me again. That was the second time I'd ever made out with anybody.
Oh my God.
And then I didn't make out again until like sophomore year of that. So like another year after that, I finally attempted making out again.
Just once a year.
Yeah. Okay. We got to end things. We're going over a lot of time. But Jarrod, thank you so much for being here. It was great having
Raven,
you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun.
Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll see you again really soon.
Absolutely. I had a blast.
Thanks so much. Bye, honeybees.
Bye, honeys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.